How you doing? My name is Ryan Wolfington, and I am the co-founder of the Inspiring Children Foundation, which runs the Jewel Never Broken program. And we are proud to be part of the World Mental Health Day Summit and Concert. The goal that Jewel and Kroger wanted to come together to bring the world's greatest experts, celebrities, musicians that really care deeply about mental health. And of all the guests and people that Jewel and I have met over the years, I can't say that one of them matches the passion and the personal experience with mental health as our next guest. Molly Bloom was number 3 in North America as a competitive skier. She was a top academic student on her way to law school before she found herself in LA, starting her own business at a very young age that became the best in the world. Number 1, no one's bigger, no one's better. That game was Molly's Game, a poker game that became famous through Aaron Sorkin's Academy Award winning nominated film, Molly's Game. I'm one of those strange people that get most excited about the suffering, right? Now, not many people understand what that means. I figured you would, but the suffering and the failures and the struggle and all the things that went wrong, because World Mental Health Day is for everybody. And we're all trying to do something with our lives. And we all make mistakes and we all mess up, and you struggle like every other CEO, so to speak. And I'd like to hear not about the wins, but what did the losses do for you? Why is suffering so good for you?
I would say that suffering was introduced to me at a pretty young age. And they're all levels, they're all forms, but I did a lot of suffering internally in my mind. And the event in my life that catalyzed that initially was at 12 years old, I was diagnosed with really severe scoliosis. And I had to have this life-changing operation. And, everything sort of changed and everything was upheaved. And I spent, after the operation itself was pretty gnarly, but what was really crazy was the recovery. And at 12 years old, I had to spend a year being still. And this was before social media. This was before the internet. I needed to reshape the narrative inside my head. And so I learned from an early age, and I didn't learn how to use it in every category until much later in life. But at a very young age, I learned that I have power and agency over what's happening in my head, and that it's critical to sort of manage that and to become aware of the narrative in my head and start to manage that. So, that was the first sort of foray into suffering, and one of the huge benefits from it. I couldn't use that skill for everything. I could just use it for success. So I became this person who was very able to achieve success, but lived in an emotional state of depression, or sort of like quiet desperation. Over the years, what I did to make that livable was I chased money and big dopamine producing circumstances. And I eventually I started using pills and alcohol and dysfunctional relationships and anything that you could use to sort of transform that suffering into temporary happiness, I used. And what that did is it made me a total prisoner of those things, total prisoner. So was I able to accomplish big, huge things in my life? Yes. But was I able to enjoy them? No. I guess the final sort of piece of desperation was, I always thought, well, if I get to this great height, if I get to this level, that'll fix it. That'll fix me. And I'll never forget this moment. I'd been up and down and been, in ruins, and finally climbed out and was about to have the biggest moment of my life. And it was, the movie was coming out, this movie that Aaron Sorkin wrote and directed about my life. And the producers called me and they said, Molly, it's really, really good. It's a special movie. And then they said, we're going to send you this huge bank wire. And I'm sitting there, and everything that I've ever wanted in my life has now happened, and happened in the most improbable way after I'd completely burned my life to the ground. And I waited for something to change inside, I'm about to, be well known, and my story will be memorialized by one of the most prolific screenwriters in history, and I have money again, and nothing changed, absolutely nothing changed. And then I knew for sure that it was a different route, that it was a different way into that. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I was wrong.
Was that kind of transfer into before it was, I'm high, right? I'm high on the excitement. I'm high on the fame. I'm high on my success because you're a smart and hard worker, right? You can always work hard. I'm high on maybe some drugs once in a while. I'm high on being at the Ritz and having the best business in the world and the people being there. But externally, you felt low at best, right? What was the transition like?
In my experience, and everybody has different circumstances, right? But like, I can just give you my experience. And in my experience, it doesn't change overnight, but it starts to change quickly.
It gets better fast, yeah.
It gets better fast. I had to try lots of different things. And I can tell you what the sort of daily practices that I have that made a huge difference for me. One of them is meditation, as you know, and meditation is hard for some people. And I went through this over the last 8 months. I went through a period where it was really, really, really hard to meditate. Really hard. Don't know why. Have some ideas. And so what I did is, instead of focusing on meditation, I started to do some breath work practices. And as soon as I learned how to harness that breath, it helped me, get through the blocks, the boredom, the racing mind. Like, I think breath work is insanely transformational. I think it's the most bang for your buck that you can get. If you start to learn how to manage your breath, and you start to learn how to manage your nervous system, and you manage your stress levels, and that's from looking better to feeling better to being smarter, like that's addressing all those things. So breath work and meditation is huge. Again, I had a really, and still do, overactive cortex. So what I needed to do was start real small, 30 seconds the first day, where I just focused. I placed my focus on the breath. And then, and then I completed it and got the dopamine hit. And then the next day I went back to the mat and did a minute and completed that, because that's manageable and that's digestible. And then I built up my practice that way. If I had it to do over, I'd start with breath work. I'd start doing 3 minutes where I'm focusing on diaphragmatic breathing and build that way, because it's such an easier way in my opinion, especially if you've got a really overactive cortex. The other thing that I do all day long, everyone talks about mindfulness or living mindfully, and a lot of people have different definitions. And what that is to me is being able to observe what's happening in your head, what's happening in your mind, and start to manage that process better. So like, what does that look like for me? I don't know. So the pandemic comes along, right? My work gets cut down by like 90%. I have all these debts still to the DOJ and the IRS and whatever, because crime is expensive. And, so right on schedule, the inner chirper starts going, you're going to be finished. You're going to lose all your money again. You're not going to be able to make your life work. Total fear, total like reintroduction of trauma. And I had to combat that voice like my life depends on it. I had to go to war with that voice.
Because it starts to affect the whole ecosystem. Like you can't sleep, you can't eat, you start snapping at people. Next thing you know, you have a conflict because you just got mad at somebody. It's fascinating how that little chirpy.
Yeah. It becomes you, right?
Yep.
It affects everything. So, going to war with that. And in the beginning, if you're not sort of like used to staying on that voice, set yourself alarms all day long so that you check in and see what's going on, because being aware of what's going on in your head and starting to control that is the way to power. It's the way to be powerful in this world, over yourself, and over your actions. No.
What is that little girl brain, now that you're aware and you realize, wait a minute, all that was make-believe? What did you think about yourself as a little girl?
I was so critical. It was hard for me to walk by mirrors. I beat myself up constantly. Was worried that people were mad at me. It is a huge reason. That voice was a huge reason why I turned to drugs, alcohol, dysfunctional relationships, all of it, because I needed a break and I needed to get external validation to try to change that messaging, when the truth is that messaging will never change until you change it. There's this whole field of neuroscience, neuroplasticity, that shows us that we can actually change the anatomical structure of our brain, that these networks, and connections and neurons and the way our brain fires can be altered and changed. And for some reason, especially with girls, we need to upgrade that operating system because it is not our friend. Mm-hmm. And, if you want to have power in this world, and if you want to have agency, and if you want to enjoy your life, this is critical work. I so wish somebody had sat me down and taught me what you're teaching those kids, Ryan. Because who knows where I would have been right now. I would have, if you want to know the real reason why, even though I was the U.S. ski team, I was skiing for the U.S. ski team and 3rd overall in North America and got straight A's in college and scored in the 99th percentile in the LSATs, I still didn't think I was good enough. I still thought that the best I could do was running an underground poker game. Otherwise, I would have gone into politics or, done something different, and probably not. I did not know my worth, and I know that there are so many young girls and women that, because of this sort of thing this inner dialogue that's very destructive that exists, and there's missed joy and there's missed ambitions and pursuits. Listen, I'm not pushing a monastic life. I will always be ambitious. I will always want to do things at scale, and that's how I'm wired. But the difference is, this time around, I'm actually enjoying my life. I'm enjoying my life, and I have joy in simple moments, and it's like being reborn.
All right, well, I'm going to let you go, and thank you again for not only spending time with our children in the Inspiring Children Foundation and Jewel's Never Broken program, but for coming here today to share your story. For those watching, below, you're going to see links to Molly's book and her movie and the things that she loves, some of her favorites. And come back. This World Mental Health Day Summit and concert has so much content. The concert's going to blow your mind. There's unbelievable artists. And we really want to thank Kroger and all the sponsors for making this possible.